When you have an informed opinion on any topic, then let your voice be heard. That is what we do on Express Yourself. Express Yourself is a production of the Drury University Department of Communication and the Drury University Debate Union, where we teach students the arts and skills of debating and then encourage them to apply those skills in various forms of civil discourse. This week's panelists are Alexander Long, a senior from Mount Vernon, Missouri. Studying psychology, Andrew hopes to be a lawyer one day, and his favorite public speaker of all time in psychology is Ronald Reagan. Christopher Cassidy, a senior studying criminology and sociology from Nixa, Missouri. He wants to get his doctorate in criminology and continue to do research. His favorite speaker is Ronald Reagan. Austin Cassidy from Nixa, Missouri. Austin is a junior studying communication. His career goal is to be a business leader. His favorite speaker of all time is Donald Trump.
Erin Benedict, a freshman from Owasso, Oklahoma. Erin is studying history, and her favorite speaker is Stephen Colbert.
Our facilitator and moderator is Dr. Charlie DeBerry, director of the Drury University Debate Union. And now, here's Charlie.
Thank you and welcome to the program. This show is going to focus on protest, particularly political protest in this country. You know, if we don't like something in this country, we have the right to protest against it. And right now, you have quite a few people who are angry people in this country. And these angry people, they're angry for various reasons, and we can get into that if we want. But they're angry, and they're supporting a candidate by the name of Donald Trump. And these are angry people who are supporting Donald Trump. Now, you also have some angry people in this country who, in their own words, hate Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump is known to use language that is politically incorrect, language that is inflammatory, language that itself may encourage people to either be hostile or at least match hostility with hostility. So you have Trump supporters going to Trump rallies, and they are greeted by people who say they hate Donald Trump, and it all gets very ugly. Now, this doesn't happen every election cycle, but it's happening very much in this one. So I want to let you begin and ask you what's going on, and let's decide what's the cause of all the protest.
Well, I find it pretty interesting that first off, you see Bernie and Hillary supporters going over to Trump rallies, and they're the ones who are doing the protesting. You don't see Trump supporters going to Bernie and Hillary rallies doing protesting and inciting violence. I mean, that's just something I'd like to throw out starting out. Who's really the ones inciting violence?
You're saying what is there to protest at the Clinton rally? Or?
I mean, there's plenty to protest about Clinton. I mean, some of her policies are just horrible, and just I can't believe she's running for president, and she's also leading. So
the place where I would disagree with you is that Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders doesn't go around saying, and I quote, this is what Trump said, "If you see someone getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them. I will pay the legal fees." I mean, that's you don't see Clinton or Bernie Sanders basically asking their supporters to knock the crap out of people.
Okay, yeah, and that's what when I said he used inflammatory language, he certainly does. I guess a question though would be, I think this goes to what Chris was talking about. Would you consider this the protests going on? Are these peaceably? We have the right to peaceably assemble and protest.
Right.
Would you would not label those as peaceably assembled, would you?
I wouldn't label them as incredibly unpeaceable.
Okay.
I don't think they're illegal if that's what you're getting to at all. And I think they have the right to do it. I think as well it gets a little bit overboard in my opinion, and I wouldn't participate. But at the same time, I mean, they have the right to do it.
And does Trump saying something like what you said about throwing tomato and everything and knocking the crap out of them, does that give us a reason, or does that justify blocking a highway off to a Trump rally? And does that justify blocking people's right to free speech?
Absolutely not. I believe free speech should be upheld, and those people were out of line. I do believe, but the whole tone of this polarization is coming in when people who are peacefully protesting are getting kicked out of Trump rallies. There's a woman whose name is Rose Ahmed. She's middle-aged. She went to a Trump rally wearing a hijab and a T-shirt saying "Salam, I come in peace," and she was thrown out of the rally with Trump Trump supporters, throwing all kind of verbal insults towards her. And this has happened multiple times where people who are peacefully protesting are getting thrown out and are, having things done to them that should not, is also causing a violation on free speech on both sides.
It's important to recognize, though, it's not just going on at Trump rallies. For example, there was just a protester that was thrown out in Hillary's rally as well. Mm-hmm. And what she was asking for Hillary was for Hillary to apologize and justify her statements of what she said about black incarceration rates back in the 1990s. So... And
right.
The end result was the same, where Hillary's supporters ended up bashing her and then throwing her out as well. So,
yeah, I think you find quite a bit of it. It's more, obviously we're more aware of it because Trump is so bombastic that anything that goes on there, I mean, if there wasn't, so when the news covers a protest, whether the most recent one in Tucson, when they cover a protest, it's almost as if someone's just, for God's sake, surely there will be a fist thrown here somewhere so that we've got some real news to put on the air. And I think it's interesting that the question gets asked after the Tucson rally. The anchors on CNN said, well, Trump has been gone and his supporters have been gone for half an hour. Why are the protesters still here? And what's the answer?
Well, the cameras are still there.
Ben Carson is a kind of a non-violent guy, right? I mean, would you go along with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Non kind of what, when he's awake and going, he's non-violent. He's not. I don't think you could say he's mean-spirited, and he's endorsed Donald Trump. And he's tried to counter some of the rhetoric because he says, I don't think he's a racist and so on and so forth. But he says, as well do other organizations, that or other people, that when you have organizations who are at these rallies, MoveOn.org is a very large presence. And that there are other organizations at these rallies, and that MoveOn.org in particular, according to Carson, said that they need something to happen at these rallies so that they can show them to their constituents as a fundraising effort, because this helps support their agenda. So I guess my question is this is it an opportunistic thing for certain organizations who are very much far away from the Trump agenda? Are they just being opportunistic here, or are they trying to cause problems in order to
I think it could mostly be said that they're just trying to get their word out, because your word doesn't get out unless you get media coverage. It's not going to spread more than people can hear you right there. So they have to do it in a way that they are actually going to get media coverage. And at these rallies, and being a little bit overboard, they're going to get coverage, and then they're going to get their word out. And they also are going to get some support and fundraising. But I think mostly it's to get their word out.
I agree with Alex. If you want the attention, then you need to get thrown out or have some sort of attention grabbing scenario happen.
Well, my concern with this is Trump is currently running his campaign on the wave of polarization that is sweeping the United States. According to data from the Pew Research Center, we're just as or more polarized as we were right back before the Civil War happened. Okay, and so what I want to know is, are these protests actually helping Trump in his campaign? Does it make his supporters make it look like that Trump's actually right and saying that the country's going to hell and everything? What's going on here?
Are you
Well-
are you trying to say that we're at the same point that we were at the Civil War and Trump's trying to stop that?
I'm saying Trump is egging it on, and that's the entire reason why he's making these inflammatory statements, is to get people to rally behind his side and to get pretty much their support unconditionally.
Well, I'm not going to disagree that I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. At the same time, there are a lot of pundits who will say that for the last 7 years, that this country has become more and more and more polarized under the Obama administration in terms of pitting blacks against whites, rich against poor, and so on and so forth. And this just didn't start on June. This didn't start in June of last summer. The polarization of the country, and so the idea that this is something that's just happened, I don't think is probably a reasonable thing to say. I'm not sure. Maybe we should ask that question. The people who are supporting Trump, why are they so angry?
Well, there's several reasons. There was back in 2000, I believe 10, the Supreme Court passed legislation that allowed infinite amounts of money donations to be contributed to campaigns, and putting limits on that was anti-constitutional, and so that was dropped. And so the last couple election cycles have been, millions and millions and millions of dollars being pumped into these elections, and I feel like a lot of people believe that instead of a democracy, a representative democracy that we've now turned into almost a plutocracy where the rich control the politicians, and people have been getting more fed up about that. And as you said earlier, these social issues, of differing ethnic classes clashing with each other, have been escalating in years, have kind of come to a boiling point where all these voters are angry, and
so these voters are angry at rich people
Everyone.
controlling politics, but they're voting for a really, really rich person.
Who's not associated with politics. That's the keystone there.
And he's not associated with banks. Like a lot of establishment candidates like Jeb Bush and Rubio were being backed by establishment people who had connections to large banking establishments such as Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, places like banks like those, and I think that's one reason why he's doing so well. And he's also riding that wave of polarization, possibly into the president's office or the Oval Office.
I have a question for you. Do you see any irony in the practice of debate? We try to teach the idea that if you finally resort to name calling, you really have reached about as low as you can go instead of arguing. Do you find there's to be some irony in the people who are protesting Donald Trump's name calling, having their signs at the rallies covered with obscenities, in which if you ask why do you not like Donald Trump, it's because he is a racist, bigot, and so on and so forth. In other words, their reasons they give are name calling reasons.
Well, I feel like some of it could be more substantial if he had more substantial policies. I mean, it's hard to bash somebody who has hardly anything there to bash besides his own bigotry. So if all he's doing is spouting these hateful things, then there's not much there to bash besides his hateful things.
So it's just name calling against name calling.
Yeah, because he's already stooped to that point.
Well, one thing you've seen is name calling has gotten him quite a lot of press. Maybe they're using the same strategy of using maybe more vulgar rhetoric to gain more media attention. And the saying, any media attention is good attention. So, I mean, it's worked for Trump. Will it work for the protesters?
I want to ask you, I want to tell you something very quickly, and we're going to wrap this up. In terms of protesting things, there was an interesting protest that went on yesterday at Emory University. And the protest involved someone in the middle of the night. If you're on a college campus, you're aware that people use chalk and they write on sidewalks. We have events coming up and so on and so forth. There are people who support Bernie and they write Bernie's name on the sidewalk and so forth. Well, this is going on at Emory, but one night before last, someone wrote Trump 2016 on multiple sidewalks around the campus. And the students created a protest at the administration building in which they said that this was intolerable. They couldn't have it. Students were screaming at the administration. They were chanting at the administration that you must do something about this. We came here because we were told we would be safe here, and now we know that we have someone on this campus who is supporting Donald Trump, and you must do something about this. And the administration has said, we will look at security cameras and see if we can find who wrote his name on the sidewalk. Now, I want your reaction to that protest.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. First of all, for the administration to do anything about it where they're actually going to look at security footage, that's ridiculous, because if they find a name and then the student body finds out about that name, it's going to be really bad for that person's life. And second of all, the students who are upset about that are extremely intolerant, and also ridiculous because they should be able to look at somebody else's politics and be like, well, I don't like their politics, but that's okay, they have their opinion.
And I will say, all it said was Trump 16. Go ahead.
Oh, those poor things. They're scared of a little shock. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, first off, what I'm going to say about that is, firstly, I'm going to go with what Alex said. That's just really goes to show like how that's just intolerance to the extreme. Like if you're protesting something just off Trump 2016. However, I can see the students' sides, and that when I was reading through these news articles, the student who wrote Trump 2016 never went through any official organizations, which you're supposed to do. And it's part of Emory's rules. And also, so he didn't do that part, which I feel was wrong on his part. But I feel he should have gotten went through those organizations, so he was allowed to write the names, and it wouldn't have been such a big deal to begin with. So, but I'm curious to see if he would have gone through those organizations and he was allowed to write the names, would there still have been an outcry like this?
So, well, I agree, because while he may have broken the rules, like that is not good, and the administration should be able to punish him for breaking the rules, but the students had a way too extreme reaction, and it's not really their business.
I like to say that hate speech in any sort of way shouldn't be tolerated, but there's no real good definition on hate speech, and until that's really defined, I mean, it turns into saying certain words. I mean, it almost becomes intolerance of free speech in itself. Hate speech is part of free speech, but if it's not defined, and if you start saying that Trump 2016 is hate speech, I mean, and that in itself is limiting free speech. And unfortunately, I mean, our Constitution allows free speech. However, if you don't define hate speech and put a clear definition on it to where it can't be thrown out of control, like the certain situation seems to be, then, I mean, that in itself, like they said earlier, is not appropriate, and in itself is to ban someone from, voicing their opinion on a very popular political topic is a little absurd.
Right. Well, thank you. I think it made a lot of publicity because of the students saying they no longer felt safe because someone had written that on the sidewalk. But anyway, they've graduated in a couple of years, and there's going to be a lot of things that we have to deal with that we don't particularly endorse. Anyway, thank you very much, panelists. You did a great job of protesting the protest, I guess. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to today's session. If you would like to see more examples of Express Yourself, you can go to drury.edu/debate, and you'll see a drop down there where you'll see several videos. And remember, if the next time you have a difference of opinion on any given topic, keep your emotions out of it, stick to the facts, and never make it personal. And then, when you're ready, you can express yourself. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.